What's up, everybody? I'm PiWalker, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Stellaris. Specifically, we are going to be looking at the UI, exactly what everything means, and how it all works. So, let's jump right in. We're going to start a new game. You can make your own empires. You can see I've got one here that I made for myself, but for starting off, it's probably better to choose a pre-built one. Specifically, the United Nations of Earth is a good empire to start off with. So we're going to go ahead and select that. Leave all these settings here on their default and hit play. Okay, so here we are in the game. Now this screen right here gives us a little bit of information on our empire. Down here there's a blurb of text as to what exactly happened, how our empire got to this point, all of that stuff. And I'm not going to read over it, but some people may like to look over it to get them an idea of kind of what they're playing through right now. Then up here we've got a couple more things. We can see that our government is a representative democracy, that we are fanatic, egalitarian, and xenophile, and all kinds of traits up here that will make more sense as time goes on. Each of these gives us a little bit of a boost or a debuff to certain things, and will in a way kind of define how we're going to play the game. But like I said, not super important right now, so we're just gonna hit begin. Now, I probably should have mentioned earlier, but I do have all DLC and mods disabled right now. So this, what we're playing through right now, is just the base version of the game. That if you were just to go pick up Stellaris without any DLC or installing any mods at all, this is what you'd be playing through. So, first off, let's start with this bar across the top of the screen here. These are all of our resources. So over here we have energy credits, which are basically our money in the game. It can be used to trade for other materials on the galactic market. And there's a couple other things they're used for, like hiring governors and admirals and stuff, but it's basically money. Minerals are kind of our base form of just kind of construction materials, basically all lumped into one thing. Basically, your minerals are going to be used to build buildings on planets and build things in space that aren't ships or stations. Food is, of course, food. Your pops need it to survive, and that'll be grown on planets. Now, these three here are kind of base resources. They are either mined or produced or in some way basically out of nothing, just from labor. Whereas these next resources are more of a higher tier resource. That is, they're made using the lower tier resources. For example, consumer goods here are made from minerals. So you have workers that will convert minerals into consumer goods. Now, consumer goods are basically your household appliances or whatever. These are just general things that people are going to want to have to live. So your pops will use these consumer goods, and they'll also be used for some other things to make, for example, science over here. So these are just kind of general supplies. And then you have alloys, which are also made from minerals, and they are used basically to build stations and to build ships. Alloys are one of the most important resources in the game because they are used to build your fleet. And if you have a big fleet, you can go and take on just about any enemy. Then we have influence, which is basically your political power over your empire. It takes influence to do things that you might have to, it might take some influence to do, or connections or whatever. This is just your political power, really. Unity here is a lot like culture, if you ever played Civilization. And if we click on it here, basically it's used to adopt traditions that will kind of give you bonuses throughout your empire, and kind of dictate, in a way, kind of how your empire kind of runs and what it prioritizes. A lot like the policy and culture system in Civilization. Then over here we have research. Research, along with alloys, are the most important things in the game. Because alloys will allow you to build a bigger fleet. Research allows you to make a better fleet. The more technology you have, the better the weapons and other things on your fleet will be. Then over here we have your strategic resources. These are special resources that you don't tend to have in as much abundance as the other resources. These may be compared to things, if you played Civilization, with things such as your horses, iron, uranium, etc. And these can be found in the galaxy. They can also be made from minerals. You can turn minerals, well, into at least the first three: volatile motes, exotic gases, and rare crystals. The other ones are even more special. Then we have our Empire Sprawl, which essentially what this is it shows how, basically it's how well we can manage our entire empire as far as administration and bureaucracy and all that goes. So you can see we have 34 out of 50. So basically we require 34 administrative capacity, is what it's called, in order to keep our empire running. And we have the capacity to do up to 50 administrative capacity. Now, we can go over this. This will not, like, just stop going up once it hits 50. We can go over it. However, we will get penalties. You receive penalties to things such as research, speed, or your unity and stuff like that. So, as we go over this, our empire gets debuffs. However, we increase it just by making administrative offices and stuff like that allow us to handle a bigger empire. Envoys here are... They're basically determine your external political power on a galactic scale. So, recently in the Federation's update, right, in the game, they added the ability to have this kind of diplomatic power over other empires to an extent that never existed before. Envoys are kind of the manifestation of this power. The more envoys you have, the more you are going to be able to influence other empires and their decisions. Pops. So this is just how many people there are in your empire, and this is extremely important because you need people in order to produce resources. All these resources require people to produce them. So the more people you have, the more resources you can gain from your empire. So this, you want this as high as possible for sure. Starbase capacity, this basically has to do with how many star bases you have in the system. Now, we have, so starbases, basically what they do is they claim stars as your own, or solar systems as your own, right? So we have one here. Since it's our starting system, we could place one here, and then this would be ours. However, when you place the base level, it does not use this, but it can't do much. What starts using starbase capacity is when you upgrade it to a higher tier, which allows it to be basically a defensive station or potentially a trade station, that kind of thing. And that'll start using your starbase capacity. But just claiming systems with them does not. Then, lastly, of all our resources here, we have naval capacity, which essentially dictates how much military we can handle in our empire. Currently, we can have 20, basically, kind of points. Each type of ship has a different number of points that it takes up. Right now, we can only make corvettes, which use 1 point each. But later on, we'll be able to get higher tier ships that will use more points. 20 is pretty low, but you won't need much more than that at the beginning of the game, though. But it's not uncommon if you go very militaristic to see this go up into hundreds or thousands. So now that we've covered all of this, let's look at the side panel over here. So first off, there's this little button down here that allows you to lock the panel, so that way it doesn't pop out. I had it locked because I generally don't need it popped out, but you may want it to pop out like this because that may give you a little bit of help as far as what screen is which. If we look at our first screen, contacts here, this basically shows all of the empires that we are aware of in the galaxy. And we're able to click on them, hit communicate, and look at just trade with them and stuff like that. And then you can see up here it shows some stats about them, their name, what what's our relationship with them, basically, what their diplomacy status is. Are they aggressive? Are they very diplomatic? There's all kinds of stuff here. You can get plenty of information about empires on this screen. The next one down is our situation log, which is also subdivided into 3 separate things. Basically, our situation log shows what our current goals are. So in the situation log tab, it shows certain goals that we can start working towards. The energy economics thing we're getting here, by the way, is from our current leader. Since we are a... there we go. This button right here shows your empire stats, by the way. Since we are a democracy, our leader, does it not show here? Anyway, regardless, our leader kind of made promises to the public when they were elected into office, and that's basically what this is. But we'll get other things listed down here as time goes on. Anomalies basically are weird things that we notice out in space that need further research. Currently, we haven't explored space, so there are none here. And victory just shows our current score and who's going to win when January 1st 2500 comes. Currently we are in 7th place, which is probably last place because there's probably only that many empires, but we don't need to worry about that too much right now. Next we have the market, which I did talk about earlier, that you can use energy credits to trade for different other things on the market. You can trade for strategic resources as well, but you have to have somehow discovered these resources first. So that's why they're not showing up over here. But here we see we can select minerals, and we can either buy them, we don't have enough energy to do that, or you can sell them. So here we could sell 100 minerals in order to get 70 energy credits. Something that is generally a good idea at the beginning of the game is to actually take your food and sell all of it, and take your consumer goods and sell all of it, because you start off with plus 23 and plus 7 for food and consumer goods here, and so we're already in the positive. We're going to gain more, and generally it's nice to have a little bit of boost in energy credits, as this helps you get another science ship up and running. We will talk about that a little bit more in a future video though, but just go ahead and sell those though. The next screen is planets and sectors. This is going to show you all of your, basically all your sectors here. So a sector is kind of a portion of space within which everything is managed by under a single entity. So currently we have one sector, the core sector. It is called Earth. There is one colony there, 1 system, and 32 pops in this sector. As we expand out, we'll end up having to create new sectors to manage all of our planets. And then here we can see the overall output and these. So this is just overall output of these sectors here, and you can see we have a governor who is currently managing the sector, and you can see his traits here and stuff, or her in this case, her traits. The next one is the expansion planner. This shows all of the planets that you are aware of currently in the galaxy that can potentially be colonized. Now, just because they can be colonized does not mean that we can actually live on them. If you look here, we already have Mars sitting here, but it has a 0% habitability, and thus we cannot colonize it because it has a habitability of 0%. However, we can terraform it in the future, but that is a terraforming candidate right here. It can be terraformed in the future, but we have to get research for that, and we're not at that point yet. The next thing is policies, which are really complicated. There's a lot of them, and basically it is how our empire is run. I feel like our diplomatic stance is kind of like, what are our goals in the galaxy? Are we going to try to beat people up or just kind of expand? War philosophy, do we only fight in defensive wars, or are we allowed to fight whatever wars we want? Do we engage in indiscriminate bombardment? Do we allow that? Do we allow certain pops to be purged? All this kind of stuff is in this section here. Edicts. These in a way are kind of campaigns that will give you bonuses. Currently we only have 2 that we can run, and we only have the capacity for 1 edict to be running at a time. And then it also costs influence to run these edicts. There are other edicts that will cost energy credits or unity, I believe, are the only other 2 options. Oh no, they can also take strategic resources like volatile motes, for example, to run. We could do something like, for example, fortify the border here, but we have no reason to right now. But if you look, what it does is it makes our star bases upgrade 50% faster and gives us an extra 2 star bases that we can have. It does, however, increase the amount of empire sprawl we gain from systems, so we're going to need more administrative capacity. However, there's no point in doing that right now, as we already have 2 open starbase slots, basically. We have 1 out of 3 starbase capacity, and we don't really need any more starbases, so we don't need to worry about that right now. Traditions and relics, we already went over this screen, as do with the unity and picking traditions to give your empire bonuses based on certain traits here. Relics, I don't have the Ancient Relics DLC, and so I don't know a ton about this, but there are mods that will allow you to use this system, I believe, even if you don't have the Ancient Relics DLC, but this has to do with that. The ship designer here will allow you to customize your ships however you want, with whatever weapons, reactor, engines, whatever that you want. However, normally you come in here and basically make a single design for your ship and then leave it at that, because you can set auto upgrade and it'll automatically put the next tier of something in when it's researched. Fleet manager allows us to manage our fleets. Go figure. We can, for example, say, hey, this fleet, we want to put a bunch more ships on this fleet, like this. For example, we want to say, hey, we want this fleet to have 20 corvettes. Then we can technically hit reinforce all, and we can't actually make all 17 ships. See, one fleet needs to be reinforced with 17 ships for 1,700 alloys. We do not have 1,700 alloys. We can only afford to reinforce 1 ship for 100 alloys. But we don't need to worry about that right now, so we're going to drop this back down. Then we have the technology screen. We are going to come back to this in a little bit, but this basically allows us to select a research in 3 different categories. You basically have 3 categories of research: physics, society, and engineering. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. Your factions basically have to do with some internal politics and how much your people agree with the policies of the government. Not something that really needs to be worried about right now. Flames mainly has to do with warfare, and we don't need to worry about that yet either. Species will allow you to genetically modify your species once you get the research to do that. It will also allow you to modify any robotic species that might be in your empire. And leaders here allow you to recruit different types of leaders. Governors govern over sectors. Scientists do 2 things. They lead research with your research projects here, and they man science ships, which are used to research anomalies, as well as they're also used to survey, that's the word, survey new systems. Admirals command your fleets and can give bonuses to them, and generals command your ground armies, but they're pretty much useless and you won't really be using them all that much. So with all of this stuff done, I'm going to go ahead and lock this bar. Again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Then down here we have some hotkeys. So you can hit 1, 2, 3, and 4, for example, to select what is currently hotkeyed. There are some default ones. 1 is our capital planet, 2 seems to be our military fleet, 3 is our science ship, and 4 is a construction ship. You can manually reassign these. I generally don't tend to use them all that much, but you can use them if you want. Then over here on the outliner, this basically gives us an overview of everything in our empire. So we have sectors here, which we have 1 sector called Earth, and within which we have a single planet called Earth. And you can click on it and open up the planet screen. We have our shipyards. We have 1 shipyard. Military fleets. We have a fleet, and civilian ships are our construction ships and science ships. And I believe any colony ships will also appear under here. Now, while it looks very small right now, it can very easily and very quickly get out of hand as you expand your empire, get more fleets, more shipyards, more sectors. It can get out of hand very easily. And if you click on this gear right here, you can choose what all is displayed, which there's a lot of information that can be displayed on these screens, which currently a lot of these aren't being displayed because they don't apply. Branch offices don't apply. We don't have any star bases, so they don't need to be shown. We don't have any armies, so they aren't shown, for example. But you can easily reorder them and enable and disable them over here. There is one thing I'd like to mention as far as mods go with the outliner here. There is a mod called the Tiny Outliner mod that I absolutely love, and I think pretty much anybody should use. Because it changes absolutely no mechanics. All it does is it makes this outliner more compact and easier to handle. So that is something that you may want to look into. And then of course we have our main screen here, which we close the galaxy map here. Here we are in Sol, our main system. So we can see the system, all our planets, and all of our ships and our star base as well here. And if we click this button right here, it'll bring us out to the galaxy map, where we can see all the stars in the galaxy, and kind of close to us we can see what stars connect to each other. Then the last thing I think needs to be talked about the UI would be this kind of bar up here where we have these 3 notifications hanging down. Basically, if you've ever played Civilization or something similar, this might seem kind of familiar. Anything that needs our attention will show up over here. Notifications about fleet combat or about traditions being able to be, when we have enough, unity to adopt a tradition. Whenever a leader dies, all that kind of stuff just shows up along here. Right now, we have 3 different things here. We need to select a physics research, a society research, and an engineering research. As you go on, more things will pop up and you'll handle it and they'll go away. You can, I believe, right-click on these to make them go away, but I wouldn't really recommend that for these ones that you actually have to take action on unless you really know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and real quick pick a couple of researches to do. So physics research. Oh, well, just the research system in general, I guess I should say, you're presented with a number of randomly picked choices that you can choose from. So these 3 researches are not the only ones that I have available currently to me in the current tier, like level of technology that I have. These are just the 3 that the game decided to present to me. Of course, it can only present ones to me that I have unlocked and that I'm able to research. But if I were to select something, then research that, then the next time I research something, I'd be presented with another set of 3 new technologies to research. So if we look here, we could get some military stuff with improved deflectors, so basically do better shields, but we're not worried too much about military right now. We can improve our research station output or our research from researchers, which will be jobs on the planet. We're going to go ahead and do that because getting these percentage boosts is very important in Stellaris. This 20% boost in research can become a lot once you get a lot of researchers. Now, society here, you can see here we have a 4th one. And there's a reason for that, especially because this one is highlighted here. You see, these are the 3 randomly generated researches that we got. This one is highlighted because it's a guaranteed research. This has to do with our empire and how our empire is set up here. And it gives us this research here as a guaranteed research. And because it is a guaranteed research, if we research something else, this will still show up next time, with our next research. This will always stay here until we research it. I'm going to go ahead and research it, though, because it's a pretty good one. We get +2 unity, which is pretty good, and then we get additional edicts for it. So, yeah, we'll do that. Engineering, I believe, is one of the most important researches in the game because that's where most of your military stuff is. And it's also where you get access to robots. Now, here we are presented with a little bit of a choice here. Afterburners I can easily put to the side because that's military stuff. We can get that later. Powered exoskeletons don't look that amazing on the surface, but they lead to robotics. Once we have powered exoskeletons, we can get robots, which robots are very, very good, because you can just build them and basically get more pops. Then carrier operations here gives us basic strike craft, and hangar bays as well, which strike craft, which come out of hangar bays, go figure, are very good in military stuff and can be very good in hangar bays on stations to protect our territory. But this is the very beginning of the game. We probably don't need to worry too much about protecting our territory yet, so we'll go with powered exoskeletons. And now all our notifications are gone. We have talked about the entirety of the UI. You understand how all the resources work. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Next time we're probably going to look into just how we start the game, unpausing and starting to get our first steps going in this game. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.